Hi everybody, welcome to the International Kriegsspiel Society's video on how to play Kriegsspiel. I'm your host Marshall, and I will be walking you through a brief tutorial on how to play Kriegsspiel, and I am the author of a few Kriegsspiel systems. I've actually produced 3 of them, and I'm developing a 4th one. The one that I would recommend for all newcomers would be the Southern California Kriegsspiel Rules, which you can find at our Etsy store called Kriegs Depot, or you can go to our website, which is kriegsspiel.org, go to shop, and you can find the rules on the Etsy store. You can also go to the rules section and you can find different rule sets that you can try for your own games. They vary in the level of depth and complexity, so you'll have to shop around or look around and see what works for you. Southern California rules are ideal for beginners and newcomers. These more advanced systems are better for people who know a little bit more about Kriegsspiel and what they're doing, and it just kind of goes from there. Ultimately and eventually, however, you will develop your own system of play, which is what we want to encourage all people to do. So these are really just starting points, and they're optional. I am using my K22 module. I'm using my favorite map, which is the Metz map, which is actually based on the Franco-Prussian War, but we're going to ignore that. I'm going to teach you how to run what is essentially a basic Napoleonic Kriegsspiel, and I'm just using this to teach you sort of the order of how to do things, and then once you have that down, you can take that system and you can apply it to any kind of scenario or game you want. Modern, ancients, World War II, science fiction, naval combat, whatever you want, the sky is the limit, okay? So let me go ahead and turn my video off here so you can see a little bit more of the screen. And let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of it. The first thing is, what do you need in order to play? Well, the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need 3 people. There are ways to play which is 2 people. It is certainly not a solitaire system, but you really need 3 persons to play. So I'm just going to write 3 here, just so you know. You're going to need 3 people, okay? You're going to need, 1 person will be the umpire, and then you're going to need 2 players. You're going to need the red player, and you're going to need the blue player. And that is traditional for Kriegsspiel. This whole red and blue thing that you see in gaming and sports and everything else, it actually comes from Kriegsspiel. And you don't need to call the teams red and blue. We do often, but it can be, you know, French, Austrians, French and British. It can be Prussians and Russians and whatever you want it to be. You just need the 2 sides. It doesn't matter. So again, I'm speaking in generic terms here because I expect that you're going to take this system and modify it to your taste. All right, so you have 3 persons. You have the umpire, you have the red player, and the blue player. Now, once you have all of those things, you then need some equipment. The most basic equipment that you're going to need is a map. And in fact, you're going to want 3 copies of the map. If you're playing in physical space, you need to print out 3 copies of the map. The map can be more or less any size. It can be printed on 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. But if you want the full experience, you're going to go ahead and print this big, huge spread of a map. The problem is that costs hundreds of dollars. But you do according to what you can do and what you prefer to do. You decide how you want to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do Kriegsspiel or do the map for Kriegsspiel. So you do what suits you. And again, if you're just putting your toe into the water, if you're just starting out with this, maybe you just print 3 8.5 by 11 maps. Alternatively, if everybody has internet access, you might just play something on Google Maps or some other mapping software. Find a map online and just share a digital file of the map. You can totally do that as well. If you are playing in digital realm, or if you're playing across digital medium, let's say you only have 1 map, you can always take pictures of the map with your phone, or you can take screenshots of the certain area with whatever screen capture tool you want to use. and share those with players, and you can also play in that way. If this is confusing you, just let it go, forget about it for the moment, because I think it will make more sense to you as I get deeper into the explanation here. But the short answer is if you want to play Kriegsspiel properly in person, you're going to need 3 maps on 3 different tables. So what do you need? You need 3 people, you need 3 maps, and of course you're going to need 3 tables. And then you're going to need one more set of 3 things, and that is your pieces, your order of battle. Okay? So you need 3 identical sets of pieces. And the reason you want that is because you're going to have 3 tables. On the umpire table, you have everything laid out the way it is in reality, whatever that would be. On the blue table, you'll lay out the blue pieces. You will not lay out the red pieces, only the blue pieces. Vice versa on the red table. On the red table, you lay out the red pieces, but not the blue pieces. You will eventually lay out those pieces on each table, but only when they come into contact with each other. That's because this game is played double blind, meaning in this case, not in the scientific sense, meaning in this case, that a player does not see the enemy's units that they cannot see from their perspective. To make this easier, in the order of battle, we even have what's called an avatar piece, or a command token, whatever you want to call it. That's what this little piece here with the diamond represents. That's the actual person playing the game and giving the orders. And whatever this person can see, that's what we want to describe to them or show them in a screenshot or a photo or a description that we give to them from this perspective. We don't give them everything, okay? The fog of war is very important to this game, and you want to preserve it. And the way that you preserve it is you limit the information they're able to have. That means they don't see everything that's on the table. They only see what they can see from their perspective. The next thing that you'll need is an actual order of battle. Now, you'll decide how big of a battle you want to play. But I will warn you, the more pieces that you allow players to have, the harder the work of umpiring becomes. I would recommend for anybody who's trying this for the first time, give your players between 6 to 12 pieces to push around the table at maximum. You can actually have fun just pushing around a few pieces, but 6 to 12 seems pretty reasonable if you have 2 players and 1 umpire. Anything more than that, it becomes a chore and a mess in general, unless everybody knows what they're doing. So for your first foray into Kriegsspiel, keep it simple and just have maybe half a dozen pieces per side. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to have a scenario. Ideally, you've come up with a scenario because you also have your order of battle already. And so the scenario gives you what your order of battle should be. It does not have to be a historical order of battle, nor does it have to be a historical battle. In fact, I generally discourage playing historical battles and historical orders of battle. Because what will happen is you will get that guy. That's right, you'll get that guy in your game. And that guy is the guy who happens to be the expert on that particular battle that you're trying to play. And they will critique the decisions that you've made in designing your game. And nobody has time for that. So I always say, make a little something up. Make up a little scenario. Make up a scenario and give both sides something to fight over. Give them an objective. Say, hey, you have to take this town right here. Or you have to capture this crossroads. Whatever. Anything works. Just use what we call in the Hollywood film industry a MacGuffin. A MacGuffin is a make-believe thing that gets people to move the plot along in a story. Same thing here. Give the players something to do, a purpose, a task and a purpose with their units. And make sure that that task and purpose conflicts with the other side's task and purpose so that the two armies will actually meet and there will be a fight. Once you have that done, you can proceed with playing the game. One final point on the scenario. The scenario does not have to be fair or balanced, but it should be winnable for both sides. When it's time to begin playing the game, give all players an initial report, along with the positions of their troops on the map. So tell the players where their troops are on the map. Give them a time of day. It is 6 a.m. Your men are awakened in their camp and they have formed for marching out. They are ready to receive your orders for the day. How detailed you want to make that initial report is up to you. You can give them a picture and a screenshot. Your troop have broken camp on the division exercise ground just south of the city of Metz. They are aware that enemy forces are approaching from the south, and they are prepared to fight to defend their home. That is a sufficient report, but if you want to be more florid and decorative in your report, you're absolutely free to do so. Once all players have an initial report, and they know where their troops are, and they know what their task and their purpose for the day's battle is supposed to be, allow them a short time to think. Generally speaking, a few minutes is plenty of time. But if it's their first time, and if they have a lot of things to do for the day, for their battle, you might give them a longer time to think. When playing a live game, we usually give players about 5 to 10 minutes to plan their first moves, maybe even as much as 15, with all the time between turns then limited to about 3 to 5 minutes to think. So give them a little bit of extra time to think at the beginning. Once they're ready and they've plotted out their initial orders, then you're ready to play. Go to each player and accept their orders. Here is where many umpires get into trouble. Players are often going to have a lot of questions. They are going to engage you in conversation. Sometimes you may be playing with people who are lonely, or they have other interests, or they would rather be doing something else. Who knows? But what will often happen is the conversation will develop, and they will start talking about the history, the battle. They may talk about their time they visited this battlefield in France. They will begin talking about anything except giving you their orders. And you don't want that. As a rule of thumb, consider this. If you and the player that you're speaking to are talking about something other than giving orders, stop the conversation and proceed with the game. You're wasting time. The conversation needs to stick to the orders. If players have a lot of questions, especially if both players have the same questions, it's okay to stop the game and answer the questions in common. But ideally, there shouldn't really be too many questions. You just don't want to bog down with it, otherwise the game will take much longer than it should, and it will be boring for the other player who is waiting for their turn. As players give you their orders, you want to record those orders in some fashion. If it's simple, you can simply memorize them. If need be, you can have them draw out their orders or explain it to you, or you can take notes and draw yourself. When I play online, one of the things I like to do is when the players give me their orders, I've developed a little bit of a shorthand, and I draw the orders on the map. Here, blue wants to advance their line to this position here and hold at that position. They would like to deploy their artillery here on the right, and they're going to put their cavalry on the left. For red team, I'm going to go get their orders. Red team now wants to deploy in a double line formation behind these trees. The second line here will form the reserve. They want to deploy their artillery on their left as well. And they're going to put their cavalry on the right. Now that I've drawn out the orders, and I see what both teams want to do, we get to the next step, which is processing the orders. Processing the orders means all the pieces move simultaneously in real time. That means for me as an umpire is I need to average out all these movements. So blue is going to begin by moving one square, maybe a second square, and they're going to get to this position here. The cavalry is going to move a lot faster. They're going to perhaps be in this position. The artillery will probably move quite a bit slower. It may only be in that position. When we move the pieces in Kriegsspiel, we actually often rotate them sideways or change their appearance or their state to indicate that they're in a marching column or something like that. But for this purpose, there's no need to illustrate that. We're just going to keep it simple and simply move the pieces. When you're playing your games, however, you can get as fancy and complicated as you like. Just understand that the more fancy and complicated you become, the longer your turns will take and the slower your game will move. So in this case, I've gone ahead and I've moved the red pieces up. The artillery wouldn't make it there already. The cavalry would, and so would the leader. So we have the artillery still coming online. And maybe we want to go ahead and finish the movement. So we'll give red enough to finish their movement, and we'll give blue a little extra. So that both sides have moved about the same distance they would move if they had been moving simultaneously in real time. At this point, if the turn is over, or if we're in the middle of movement, which often will happen, I could then go back to the players, give them a report, show them where everything is, and then get new orders from them. So in that case, let's just erase everything. We take a screenshot. Now what to include in the screenshot? Well, if I'm the red commander and I'm standing here, it is arguable that perhaps I would be able to see over the course of several minutes of moving around in this area, I would be able to see just about everything that the enemy is doing. The terrain here will block my line of sight. And of course, I won't be able to really see into the village. So I might create a screenshot that looks more or less something like this. If I'm playing in person, I might tilt my phone sideways and take a square photograph of this area here. I might remove pieces if I have to, whatever it takes. It's not looking too neat, so I'm just going to erase it here. Let's say red holds position. Blue makes it to their place online, and the two sides are prepared for combat. In the actual game, according to the rules, we're still pretty far out of musket range, but we're going to ignore that for now. We're going to pretend that both sides are within range and are capable of fighting with each other. Therefore, the two sides will begin combat. Generally speaking, players should not have to order their subordinate units to fight or to do things that are logical. Obviously, if the player is a brigade commander or a division commander, they're not going to give battalion, regiment, or company level orders to their men. They're going to give division level orders to their men, and they're going to allow the regiment or battalion commanders and the subordinate company commanders and so on to order their men to line up, to fire, to change formation, and so on. As an umpire, you will make those decisions for those subordinate units. The player in charge should not have to order these units, for example, to form a square or to open fire. You may ask them if they wish to prefer counter battery fire or to fire at any enemy infantry targets. You know, what do you wish to prioritize? But that would be about the extent of it. Now that the two units are in combat with each other, you need to resolve the combat in some fashion. That is where rules come in handy. I don't want to get to the weeds with explaining different rule systems and how to do things. Generally speaking, however, you're going to use dice. I was just looking for some dice, and I don't have any dice handy in this module. But we're going to go ahead and just spawn a couple dice. And we'll just pull in a couple simple dice. And we're going to just go ahead and roll off. And we're going to say that one side's got one result and the other side has the other result. Oh, it looks like it's a tied result. So maybe the two sides remain locked in combat. Whatever. Okay. The result here is absolutely immaterial. What we have here is maybe the blue side has scored a limited victory over the red side. So now some of the red units are beginning to fall back. Perhaps now red has to put in its reserve. Perhaps they've lost one or two of these guns. Perhaps now red decides, let's make our move. Let's send our cavalry here on the flank. Blue decides they want to oppose that. Blue shifts their artillery fire to counter battery fire. They order their infantry to advance. Whatever. The idea here is that after you resolve the combat, you go back to the players and you give them a report. You say, in the first round of combat, your 1st battalion took some losses from the artillery and the troops lost their nerve and began to fall back. Fortunately, 3rd battalion moved forward and filled the gap. You now see that Blue's infantry are advancing rapidly in your direction. They are maintaining a cohesive line, and it appears they are coming at you with bayonets fixed. What are your orders? Red will say, well, I want my cavalry to outflank the enemy, to distract them and oppose them. I want my artillery to focus on counter battery fire or maybe on the infantry, and I want 2nd and 3rd battalions to hold. Once you have the orders processed, you then roll again as appropriate and whatever. And you simply do this until the battle is resolved and one side gives in. Once you've done that, you've essentially played Kriegsspiel. That is simply how to play the game. It isn't terribly complicated unless you want to make it so. I do want to warn players against doing what I call minutia, which is trying to model weapon types, precise weapon ranges. Are these 6-pound or 12-pound guns? Are they 10-pound guns? What kind of shot are they using? Are these Sharps rifles, Remingtons? Are they infield rifles? Whatever. I think such considerations are below the level of detail that is necessary for Kriegsspiel. Kriegsspiel is usually a higher level exercise, even if you do fight tactical engagements. You're more concerned with the decisions that officers make, not the decisions that sergeants or privates might make. Therefore, keep the focus at that level. Only focus on the command decisions made at the divisional level or perhaps the battalion level, and don't worry about decisions that are below that. Abstract those as an umpire, always in the favor of the player who's giving the orders. That's very simple. That's how to play Kriegsspiel. Hopefully you found this little introduction and tutorial useful. Once you've decided that you want to learn more, go ahead and head on over to the International Kriegsspiel Society's website at kriegsspiel.org. There you can find the link to our store where you can get rules, or you can find the link to the rules section. I ought to just go ahead and open that up now, just so you see it. And here we are. You just come here, and you can go to Resources Rules, and you can find all of our rule sets here. Or you can go directly to the store, and you can order the rules from the store, those that are for sale. I also want to encourage you to visit our website and click here to join our Discord and become a member of the International Kriegsspiel Society. It's absolutely free, costs nothing. Join the game, join the community, get in some games, and you'll be playing and running your own Kriegsspiels in no time. I want to thank you all for watching the video. I hope you learned something. I look forward to seeing you in the International Kriegsspiel Society Discord. Good luck and happy gaming.